We're learning the second Sikha on Parshas Beshalach in Chelek Chavav on page 95. The shir today is being learned L'Le Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rab Menashe Kaltman. Es steht in Tor, the Tor writes as follows: As Tov Loimar, the Parshas Hamon jeden Tag. It's good to say every day the Parsha of the Mon, which is in this week's Parsha, every single day. Und der Tam der Ruf steht in Bes Yosef. The reason for this, the Bes Yosef writes, Kedei sheyamin shekol mezenosav bon lo bashgacha, so that one should believe that all of his food, all of his sustenance comes to him from Hashem. The Alter Rebbe b'Shulchan Aruch Shaloi, the Alter Rebbe in his Shulchan Aruch in Madura Kama, in the first version of the Shulchan Aruch. As it's known, the Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch and then began to write a second edition of the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Madura Tinyana, and he wrote the first 4 Simonim. So in the Madura Kama, in the first edition of the Shulchan Aruch, is Maitik, dem Din von Tor mit dem Tam von Bes Yosef. The Alter Rebbe quotes the halacha that the Torah says with the reason that the Bes Yosef writes. Und is Meisif dem Bir von Levush, and he adds an additional explanation that the Levush writes. Shekein Oye B'Mon, that this is the way it was by the Mon, She'eshgiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Eibishter was there with the divine providence, with Hashgacha Pratis, and every single person, Loses L'chol Echad, Omer L'Gol Geilis. For every head, for every individual, there was the same amount of an Omer. L'chol Nafshis Beisei, for all the people in the house. Kamei Shekasav, as it says, Vayemaydu Ba'omer, they measured, and it was an Omer, V'lehedef Amarbe, V'hamamet Lehechser. One that collected more, it was the same amount, and the one that collected less, it was also the same amount, that Hashem provided for everyone exactly, perfectly what they needed. And therefore from this, we learn out that the same is with the parnasa, with the food that we have today, that it's coming from the Hashgacha Pratis of Hashem for every single Yid. Aber, however, in Madura Tinyana Shaloi, in the second edition of the Shulchan Aruch, is a Meshana. Here the Alter Rebbe changes the reasoning for this to say Parshas Hamon every day. Und anstatt bringen dem Tama Bes Yosef v'halavush, and instead of bringing the reason that Bes Yosef says with the explanation of the Levush, Zokter, the Alter Rebbe writes, U Parshas Hamon, the reason we say Parshas Hamon every day, Liftoyach b'Hashem, to place your trust in Hashem, Noisin lechem devar yom b'yomeh, that gives one his bread on a daily basis. So now looking here at what the Alter Rebbe says here, different than what he writes in the first edition, Ashinui in Svei Pratim. The difference here is in 2 details. Aleph, number 1, Anstat Lashon Bes Yosef sheyamin, in the place of the expression of Bes Yosef writes that it's about the belief in Hashem, Zok the Alter Rebbe Liftoyach. The Alter Rebbe says it's about the trust, to rely on Hashem. Beis, bringt nicht ein Minyan in Mon, he does not quote the detail about the Mon as is given, Bashgacha Pratis, Omer, L'Gol Geilis, L'chol Nafshis Beisai, that the Mon Hashem provided with Hashgacha Pratis, the exact amount for everyone in the house. Nor, as das was der Eibishter hat, dem Mon gegeben noch Hanan dvar yom b'yomeh. Rather, he quotes the detail about the month, the month that is, that it was consistent on a daily basis. And this, darf rufen dem betochen, as the Eibishter is noisen lechem dvar yom b'yomeh. And that should awaken in one the trust that he should place in Hashem, that Hashem gives a person what he needs on a daily basis. Now, bepashtus, zen die zwei shenuyim anal, toli zeh b'zeh. The 2 points that the Alter Rebbe says different in the second edition, that he focuses on the union of betochen, the trust, and the fact that Hashem gives consistently, these 2 points are connected to one another. That any Yaman was a Kadosh Baruch Hu ishgiach losses l'chol echad omer l'gol geilis l'chol nafshis beisei v'lehedef amar b'v'hamamet lehechser. The point about the man, that Hashem provides everybody perfectly the amount that he needs for every person in the house, not too little, not too much, is mechazek the yamunah von Yidden. This is the point about the man that will strengthen the belief that he has in Hashem. And that is, as eine mezainis, kumen nit von koichi vaytzim yadi, that his food, his parnasa, does not come as a result of his own investment and his own hand and his own might, nor bon lein bashgacha von Eibishten, but rather it comes from Hashem that's providing exactly what he needs. As the Yidden saw clearly by the man, as the Pa'olas von Adam, haben it mishanet given, that the actions that a person did, he could go and make more effort and collect more, but he didn't get more. It made no difference in the Kamas Haman was the Rebbe had bestimmt und gegeben l'chol echad, regarding the amount that Hashem set and gave for each individual. more effort, less effort, Hashem, you believe that it comes from Him, and therefore Hashem sets the amount of how much you will have. So therefore, at this point, about hedif and lehimit, or lehedif amarba v'amamat lehechsa, that is, that strengthens the emunah, the belief in Hashem that it all comes from Him. What's the idea of betochen, placing your trust in Hashem? Is not as megleibt as mezenesav shaladam kommen von Eibishn. The point about betochen is not just the belief that your food comes from Hashem. Not as mefalastechai von Eibishn. Betochen is when one is relying on Hashem. He's dedicating himself, realizing that this is where it is, and therefore he's actually completely relying on Hashem. As vetem zichet zustellen mezenesav, that Hashem will definitely provide what he needs. Und der minyan betochen. So this point about trusting and relying on Hashem, learnt man up from them was the Rabbi Shlomo the man gegeben 2 Yom b'yomai. Here the Alter Rebbe quotes another detail about the man, the consistency, that it was on a daily basis. Vayfen Tamidi. Azay as motzach in ganzen verlost von Eibishn on kindaige b'chulu. And therefore, because it was consistent on a daily basis, he didn't have nothing to worry about, no concerns, because Hashem is providing for them so consistently on a daily basis. And this is the same that a person has to realize with the parnasa and the food, that he can totally be at peace with himself and be restful and happy, because Hashem will provide, totally rely and trust in Hashem that will give him everything that he needs. That's the idea of the midah of bitachon, not just about a belief that where it comes from, but even when one believes fully, but yet he can be still very worried and thinking that what's going to be, what's going to happen. But then there's the midah, the character trait of bitachon, when one is actually placing his trust in Hashem and relying on Hashem. That's another point that you learn out from the man, that Yidden totally relied on Hashem when they saw Hashem giving them on a daily basis. However, what needs to be explained there is as follows. My time, what's the reason was in Beis Yosef Levush, that the Beis Yosef and the Levush val derech zeh madure kamen von Alten Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and similar in the first edition of the Alten Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, bringt sich der Inyan von Kedesha Yamacholo. What's quoted is that the point of saying the Parsha of the Man is to strengthen one's belief in Hashem. Und dafkin madure tinyana, and specifically in the second edition is the Alter Rebbe Mishana. Here the Alter Rebbe changes the reason. Zog de tam levtoyach b'Hashem noisan lechem 2 Yom b'yomai. That the point is the trust in Hashem that He provides for us on a daily basis. Why did the Alter Rebbe switch, and why in the Madura Tinyana this way and in the Madura Kama differently? Seemingly it would come out here as es sich da an afgemine la halacha zwischen die zwei Timen, that there's a practical relevance of a difference in la halacha between these two reasons. We're first explaining the following point, the difference between the two reasons. Eine von die Chilukim zwischen Amunah und Bitachon is, one of the differences between the belief in Hashem and then placing your trust in Hashem. Amunah is an inyan tmidi. The belief in who Hashem is and in His power and that everything comes from Him, that's something which is constant. This is the Abgelegtkeit und Gewisskeit by Maimon. This is the resoluteness and the clarity and that it's completely there in his mind by the believer. As the Zach is azay, that this is the fact, via Gloib, as he believes. And in this case, the belief that one has that it's all Hashem. Obemele isestabayim ständig. This is the belief system and the person and the belief in Hashem that it's all Him is constant. Oich when the Amunah is not negele poil. Even when the Amunah is not something which is relevant now for a specific situation that he's in. Amunah is not about how a person will emotionally react to something, whether he will be worried or not. The Amunah is the belief system of a person that he always has in the truth of Hashem. L'dugma, for example, benidin done here in our case. The Amunah is kolben zanois of bon loy bashgacha, the belief that the person has that all his food comes from Hashem, is doch nit masim zu sagen. It doesn't fit to say as a gloibter in na be'eis or as a chaysik beparnasasi. When does he have this amunah? When he goes to work. Oh, now he's a believer. Before he's not a believer. No, not the amunah is tamid benafshay. This is the belief system of the Yid, that he believes in Hashem constantly, and it's relevant also when he goes into parnasa, but it's not only then. This is the constant level of belief that the person has. Which is not the case when it comes to the idea of betachon, when one places his trust in Hashem, the Sicherheit, verlassen sich auf dem Eibishten beparnasasai, when a person is so sure and is ready to completely rely on Hashem for the parnasa that he will have. is a hergish was vertnis eire beim Adam beisat zeirich. This already refers to something else. The emotional state of the person. How is he reacting to a pressuring situation where he has a responsibility to bring parnasa to the home? And here, how does the person take this? Does he think that he's in charge and he's concerned, or is he ready to completely rely on Hashem? So that is something that comes out and is relevant at the time of need. When a person is occupied in his work to earn a living, is a betech b'Hashem. It's then when the person has to rely and place his trust in Hashem, as uveracha Hashem lekecha b'chol asher. That it's the bracha of Hashem. Hashem will bench you in everything you do. The Rebbe wird sicher benchen seine Asiyah, Eisek, and Aneifen, as es wird ihm bringen Parnasse. That Hashem will certainly bench him, that whatever he is doing, it will bring the Parnasse that he needs. So the betochen is the actual midah of the emotion of how a person actually reacts in a situation where he needs the parnasa, that he's completely relying and placing his trust in Hashem. Oder, alternatively, when a person finds himself in a very troubling situation, and he doesn't see any possibility naturally how he can be saved from this. He doesn't fall, God forbid, into despair and to say that from where can I get any help? Not at a zicher, but teach b'Hashem. He's absolutely sure and he's relying on Hashem as a Rebishter. Hashem that rules over everything and therefore can change nature. Let him zicher helfen, will definitely help him. As the pasuk there continues, as Ezri, me'im Hashem, oisa shemayim v'aretz. My assistance comes from Hashem that created heaven and earth. Nachmer, furthermore, the greatness and the accomplishment of betochen is the betochen gufe is the keli versus mamshech the Yeshua von Eibishter Militzrachov. The very fact that the person is placing his trust in Hashem, which takes a lot of effort for a person not to get absorbed in himself and be all worried about the fact that nature doesn't seem to make it possible and the condition that he's in doesn't seem to make it possible, but nevertheless, he strengthens himself and relies completely on Hashem. It's this itself that draws and brings down the revelation of Hashem's blessing and the Yeshua that he needs, that Hashem gives him and provides him. Das ist eine von den Biurim in der Minyan von Midas HaBitochen. This is one of the explanations for what's the basis for a person placing his trust in Hashem with absolute certainty. Warum l'chayre is nicht verstandig. At first glance, there's a basic question here. Betochen meintach, the idea of betochen means, as a yid is beteach, as the Rebishter vet im meitiv sein, betoiv hanirav anigle davke. Betochen doesn't just mean that a person is sitting and he's resting and he's happy and he's not concerned because whatever Hashem will give me, I'm ready to accept. That's not the idea of betochen. Betochen is even more. That a person is actually placing his trust in Hashem, that Hashem will provide for him in open and revealed good. Das heißt, which means, as the Rebishter weiß, as das is good for mention, in addition to the fact that Hashem knows that this is good for the person, is as ba'ofen as the mensch wird zen, as this is good for him. Even the person himself will experience openly that goodness of Hashem. It won't just be good on another level, on a higher level in Hashem's perspective, but that goodness will come down and be manifest in a way that the person will see the goodness of Hashem. That's what the betochen of a Yid is. But now the question though is, das Gufe, was the mensch gefindt sich Achman al-Islan and Atzare, this itself that a person, God forbid, could find himself in a troubling situation, kann doch sein, weil seine Hage is nicht kedabei, und der Fakt kommt ihm der Einisch. It's because his behavior wasn't proper, and therefore this is a punishment. So how does he know? Was is the Yesod von sein Betochen? If so, what's the foundation of this certainty of placing his trust in Hashem? Betochen gomor va'amiti, and with a real and true, genuine amunah, was meint as bei ihm, is in dem gar kein Savik nicht da, bis is in ganzen ruhig. The real idea of betochen is the absolute certainty that the person is completely at ease, totally calm about this. As the Rebishter wird ihm sicher nicht meiner sein, that Hashem will definitely not punish him, even though a punishment itself is also a favor, it just elevates a person, but nevertheless he has an absolute certainty that Hashem will not punish him, nor meitiv sein b'toiv hanire v'hanigle dafke. And the goodness of Hashem will come down and be manifest to be actually good for him in the revealed and literal sense. But what is the certainty that a person has that this will be so? So based on what we said before, that the actual betachin itself is what draws down this level of goodness of Hashem. So the explanation is, when a Yid expresses his absolute trust in Hashem, and he brings himself to this level of trust that it's simple and absolute by him, that Hashem will do good for him in the open and revealed sense. Trotzdem, was das ist nicht massen zu die Tivies dige or teva dige cheshbonus anayzichten. Although it doesn't fit with reality, it doesn't fit with whatever calculations you'll make and looking at things the way they are naturally. But nevertheless, the person realizes that the Eibishter is greater than all of this, and he's on a level where he totally relies on Hashem. Doesn't pay attention to any of these cheshbonus, any of these calculations. Is das gufe, this itself, that a person works on himself to bring himself to this point, and it should be b'pshitus, absolute certainty, this itself is mamshech mulmayla. It brings down from above, as the Eibishter soll sich mit dem Firen Midde keneged Midde, that Hashem will behave with the person measure for measure. Was Teire is Meidia Paskint, as das is Midas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Teire lets us know and rules that this is Hashem's behavior, and Hashem is a native b'toiv v'nirav v'nigla, and therefore Hashem will give the person open and revealed good. Nit gucken the klal of the cheshbonus, das is wert. Not paying attention to any of the calculations that could be if you would look at who the person is, whether he's worthy or not. But at this point, once he had this great amunah and bitachon, not only amunah but bitachon, placing his absolute trust in Hashem, it's this itself that draws down the open and revealed good. That's the idea of bitachon. So getting back to the main point over here, the bitachon is what's necessary when a person is in that situation, whether regarding parnasa or chas v'shalom regarding a tzareh, where a person has to think to himself, so what's going on over here? I shouldn't be worried or concerned, but rather I should place my absolute trust in Hashem. That's when bitachon is relevant. So now based on this, we can come back and understand that the two reasons that the Alter Rebbe gives why one should say Parshas Amun every day, whether it's to be mechazik, it's to strengthen emunah, or it's to strengthen one's bitachon in Hashem, there can be an afgemina b'payil between these two reasons. So me'anal, let's move on. Based on what we explained, it's understood. As the ring from midas habitachon, the idea of one placing his trust in Hashem. This says the yisayrus hamida b'payil, when one actually has to inspire himself and awaken this midah, this feeling that he totally trusts Hashem, is verbunden mit bakashas rachav. That's connected in a time when a person is needy, and he has to know who he's placing his trust in to provide him. When a person is busy to receive and get what it is that he needs, it's then when the person has to have the betachin that Hashem will provide him. So based on this, there's a difference here. If the idea of a person saying Parshas Amun every day is in order for a person to be inspired, to place his trust in Hashem, is yesh mokim loimar, there's room to say, as the Parshas Amun soll gesagt werden, that the Parshas Amun should only be said, Aleph, number one, no b'moisachel, only on weekdays, aber nit b'yom HaShabbos, but not on a Shabbos, when es darf nit sein, der inyan from bakashas rachav. Shabbos is not a time when we daven and ask Hashem for our needs, and therefore it's not a time where one has to strengthen his midas habitachon regarding his needs. Just like the man itself that also did not come on Shabbos, although the man did come down on a daily basis on the weekdays. So according to this reason, you don't say the Parshas Amun on Shabbos. Is another point, even on weekdays, the Parshas Amun should not be said before davening, just like it is with when we come to daven and ask Hashem for our needs. First one praises Hashem, and then only afterwards do you ask Hashem for what you need. As we find in some of the Sidurim, where Parshas Hamon is brought in the morning by Shachris, as mat gestalt Parshas Hamon la'achrei atfila, that Parshas Hamon is in the Siddur after davening. Und zusammen mit atfila u bakasha of parnasa. And the Parshas Hamon is together with another bakasha where we ask from Hashem for our parnasa. That's according to the reason that the Alter Rebbe writes in the Madura Tinyana, in the second edition. But based on the reason that the Alter Rebbe writes in the first edition, like it says in the Beis Yosef, that the point there is to strengthen our belief in Hashem. So then the Parshas Hamon could be said even on Shabbos, or even before davening. And Velachis is in the time when one is coming to praise Hashem. Because if the point there is about our belief in Hashem, also in relation to even his parnasa, his food, his sustenance, is an inyan v'zdav sein ständig. This is something which is constant, not only in a time of need, but it's our belief system in Hashem that we have to constantly strengthen. So therefore, it would be even on Shabbos and even before davening. That's the practical difference between the two reasons brought in the first and second edition regarding saying one every day. However, it's questionable whether we can say this difference. Because even when you look in the second edition in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, where the reason for saying Parshas Hamon every day is to strengthen our bitachon, schreibt the Alter Rebbe beferish, the Alter Rebbe says clearly, Toiv loymar b'chol yom u'Parshas Hamon, that it's good to say every day, and he speaks about different things said every day, including Parshas Hamon. Was from them Lashon is mashma as das meint b'chol yom koil Shabbos. So from this Lashon it seems to be clear that includes even Shabbos. So even if the reason is for bitachon, it still could and should be said on Shabbos. And also the second point regarding the place of where in the Siddur it is, when it is that we say it in the weekday, before davening or after davening, is from stimas haloshen in Madura Tinyana mashma. So from the language of the Alter Rebbe, where he doesn't specify, even in the second edition, it seems as the only difference from what he writes in the first edition is it's only a difference in the reason why we say Parshas Hamon every day. But it doesn't seem to be that there's a change here and a limitation when Parshas Hamon should be said, only after davening, not before. And even more specifically, as Eichen Madura Tinyana is the Alter Rebbe Kailul dem Din von Amiras Parshas Hamon mit Amiras Parshas HaKedah v'Aseres HaDibris und Eich mit Parshas HaKabanis v'Lechem and Zok Kedem HaTfilah. The Alter Rebbe brings to say the Parshas Hamon together with saying the Parsha of the HaKedah and Aseres HaDibris, according to those that have the minhag to actually say the Parshas Hamon and Aseres HaDibris and the Karbanis, which are all before davening. So therefore, the actual nafkamina point that was pointed out before, apparently it's not the case. That's what it seems from the language of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, even in the second edition. Bleibt the shayla hanal. If so, the second question, the question we asked before remains. What is the tama shinui in Madura Tinyana legabe Madura Kama v'habis Yosef chulo? What's the reason for the difference that in the second edition the Alter Rebbe brings a new explanation for why one should say Parshas Hamon every day, different than in the first edition and different than what the Beis Yosef writes? So we can understand this by first explaining in Anhagas Rabbi Yosef Saba, to explain what it says in the Zohar about the behavior of Rabbi Yosef Saba, or as others have it, it's brought in the Ha'ara, it's brought in Chassidus as Rav Amnuna Saba. Was wird erzählt in Zohar von Heintige Sedre behemshech zum Minyan Amon. The story that's brought in the Zohar in this week's Parsha in connection to the Parsha of the Mon. So the Zohar tells us, as fleckt zugreiten sein Sude bechol yoim, nor nachdem wie hat früher gebeten mit seine beim Eibishten, he would prepare his meal to eat every day, only after he begged Hashem for his food. Zogendigen, he would say, Loi nisken sudese, we're not going to prepare our meal, ade tesyav mi be malka, until Hashem will give it to us. Wird nicht zugreiten sein Sude, bis es wird ihm gegeben werden von dem Eibishten. So the question is tzarech hasbara, this needs to be explained. Wie bald as reichel, von welcher hat zugegret sein Sudes, the food that he was preparing for his meal, is schein gewen b'reshusay. He already had it in his possession. Und es hat gefällt nur dem tikkun ha-meichel suda. All that was lacking is that it should just be prepared for the meal. Havele mechle dahu yemele mechel, as the Zohar points out, he already had his food that he needed for that day. Was is the Pirish? So what does this mean? As I bet by Meibishn as his own geben dem Eichel, that Hashem should give him this food. It doesn't say that Hashem should give me the ability to prepare the food, but that the Eibush should give me the very food that he already has available. So why is he davening for this? And why is he saying that this is a gift from Hashem? So the explanation is as follows. Now first, Rabbi will bring here what it says regarding Yosef when he was in prison. It says, Yedu Adam Bir from the Bechaya, or from Maimah Chazal. The Rabbeinu Bechaya says regarding this that Chazal tell us as Yosef is nanish geworden de far, was had gebeten beim Sarah Mashkim viz Kartani al Pari. When Yosef was in prison in Mitzrayim, and there was the Sarah Mashkim, the minister that was then in prison with him, and when he was released from prison, Yosef asks of him, remind me by Pari that I'm here in prison, so that I should be released as well. And Yosef was punished for this. So the Rabbeinu Bechaya explains as follows: as chas v'shalom sheyitle Yosef atzadik b'tchoinai b'sara mashkim rak b'Hashem levade. God forbid to say that Yosef is being punished in the literal sense because he mamish did not have the trust in Hashem and he was relying on this minister that'll remind him for pare. He was only relying on Hashem. Aval hoyse kavanasai sh'Hashem yizbarach hizmen elav sara mashkim zeh kedei sheyasal einasal yadai. But Yosef understood that Hashem brought the Sarah Mashkim to be in prison for this reason. This is the method of how Hashem is going to redeem him. That he's going to ask the Sarah Mashkim to remind him for Pare, and that's how he'll be released. So therefore, God forbid to say that Yosef did anything wrong. He didn't have bitachon. He had absolute bitachon in Hashem, but this was the means of how he understood Hashem wants him to be released. Now, das was Yosef is duruf nanish geworden. Now, so if so, why was Yosef punished for this? Is this lafisha bikish sibbe b'sara mashkim? Because the fact that Yosef is looking for a cause or a means or a method of how Hashem will save him, how Hashem will send his that he should be saved. That itself is the reason why he was punished for this. Because it's not befitting for tzaddikim on the level of Yosef to even do any kind of hishtadlos, to do anything in derech hateva to ask the Sarah Mashkim to go and help him to get him out of prison. And therefore Yosef was punished by this. He should have had absolute trust in Hashem. He is the master and in control of all natural causes. And therefore Hashem could bring him to be redeemed from prison in whatever way, whatever means, even without him making any effort and any personal involvement whatsoever. That's why Yosef was punished. So there was a lack on the level of bitachon that was required of a person that's on the level of Yosef, being such a great tzaddik. Now, so the question that's asked on this Rabbeinu Bechaya is, es ist doch mevor in Chayvus al-Vavis. It's explained about bitachon in Chayvus al-Vavis and Shara bitachon, where he explains the union of bitachon at length. Benegeit zum bitachon, as it is a chiyuv lasik besibus, that one actually has an obligation to make an effort in natural means to get what he needs, that Hashem should provide for him. On a break of them kamerayas, and he brings many proofs for this. Is for was is Yosef nanish geworden lefi shebikish sibbe? Why was Yosef punished for the fact that he made an effort in a certain way? That what will be the method of how Hashem will help him? This is the obligation that you have. It's not just a possibility, an option, but it's actually an obligation that the bracha of Hashem comes chalashatasa, when a person actually does something physically, in something, a hishtadlus, an effort, in an asek, that Hashem will bring his bracha. And what's explained about this is, there are two ways or two levels in a yid's bitachon. Aleph, one is bishas the anhagam ul maila is an anayfin, when Hashem behaves with a person in such a manner as nimshachim advarim shahilchim kesidram shal pi hateva, when the revelation or the blessing of Hashem is coming into the world through and within the system of nature. B'lashon Chassidus, or the expression that Chassidus uses regarding this, was das is mitzad memalik kalalmen, when Hashem comes into the world and it comes in the system of memalik kalalmen based on the existence of the world. In that case, one has to look for a means and make a vessel in a natural means that the Eibusher's bracha should come through this. It's because it's this kind of blessing of Hashem that comes through the garments of nature, through the means and the natural causes. But Beis, there's another level of Yitachin. When one sees that things are happening from above in a way that there is no natural means or causes that is possible here for a person to be saved. And when one sees that it's Hashem orchestrating matters in a way that is not coming through any natural means, from a level of Seiviv which is unlimited. So therefore here what's required of a person is that he should elevate himself to a deeper and higher level and placing his trust in Hashem. And here one has to completely rely on Hashem orchestrating matters, and the person should not make any effort at all. That definitely Hashem will find the means in the way of how to help him. That's when a person sees that things are not happening in any natural means. That's the higher level of Bitachon. On Yosef HaTzadik, so therefore coming back to Yosef, he was always connected to this level of Bitachon that's beyond nature, beyond any sibbe, beyond any means. From him it was demanded that he should be on this higher level of Bitachon, in placing his trust in Hashem without looking for any means of how and through what level in nature Hashem will bring this. And therefore, Yosef, that did not live up to that standard of Bitachon that was on his level, there was an inyan of a einish for him. Those are the two levels of Bitachon. Now, this seemingly, the higher level of Bitachon is only for a tzaddik, and only for a person that's in a situation where there is no derech hateva, there is no keli, there is no world, it's just seiviv kalam, and it's an unlimited connection or revelation from Hashem, where there's nothing else other than Hashem. So the Rabbi goes on to say, however, der chiluk zwischen die zwei Efanim im Bitachon is da euch b'shas memacht ya keli. This distinction, these two levels of Bitachon, can also be possible even when the person is looking for a means in nature of how to bring the bracha of Hashem into the world. Person is Isaac in his parnasa, whatever the keli may be. Even here, the attitude in the keli, in the vessel that one makes for Hashem's bracha, there's also two levels here, based on the two levels of Bitachon explained before. Das was es fadet sich bei von Aleph, as der Adam soll machen a keli. The fact that it's required on the first level of Bitachon that a person should make a vessel for the bracha of Hashem is his val mitzadan hagam maila, because Hashem, the way he orchestrates matters, the way he brings things into this world, when things are coming into the world through the means of nature, hot the teva on the darkia teva atvisis makim. This is a level of Hashem's existence that relates to the existence of the world, and therefore the rules of nature and so on have significance. Und der Rebbe darf der Adam suchen a keli v'sibbe durch welche es wird zum nimshach werden in the birchas Hashem. So therefore, it's going to be required of the person to find a way, a vessel within nature of where the bracha of Hashem will be. That's the simple explanation of the first level, where a person has to make a keli, is looking for a sibbe on the level of mamal kalaman, a level of godliness that says that the Welt and its means and nature is in existence, it's significant. However, when one is on the higher level of Bitachon, as explained before, and therefore on his level, there's nothing that he has to do, it's just absolute trust in Hashem. So the real point over here is the idea that the Welt, the world, its nature has zero significance. And therefore he doesn't have to look for any kind of cause or vessel in means of nature. And therefore, so over here, a person on this level, even when there is a cause and there is a keli within tava for his panasa, is sein panasa durch dem nit nente geworden zu ihm, legabe wie wollt nit gehad, when one sees that there is some kind of means and some kind of vessel within nature that's bringing him his parnasa, he doesn't view teva in this way. that now the teva means, oh, look, naturally it's more possible, it's here for me, and therefore that means that the parnasa is closer, it's more available, it's more accessible. The teva, the point there is that the teva is not teifus makim. So even when it does come through nature, doesn't mean that the person views teva in a way that now that means that there's more a closeness, more possibility, more accessibility because of what teva is dictating. Because whatever cause, whatever vessel there is in nature has no significance. And therefore everything that he gets from Hashem, including when it comes through nature, it's all coming directly from Hashem. So therefore the conclusion here is euch die Sibbe v'keli azach was der Eibishter macht für ihm zusammen mit seinem Parnasa. So the very cause and keli that there is within Teva, the means from where the Parnasa is coming through, this itself is also Hashem creating this. And it's coming directly from Hashem. So even when a person is making a keli in Teva for the Parnasa, but it still can be with the attitude of the higher level of B'tachin that he realizes that the keli itself and the sibbe itself that he's making is really all also Hashem. The keli itself is really all Hashem that's bringing it in this way. Und das ist euch die Asbare in ein Haggis Rabbi Yosef Save, was hat gesagt, Leinisken Sudese Adet es Yav Mibe Malke. Rabbi Yosef Save, when he was sitting down to eat, he said that we're not going to prepare the meal until it'll be given to us as a gift from Hashem. Even though he had the food to eat, right here, it was available for him to eat. Why did he still daven to Hashem? Why did he still say that it's Hashem giving me this gift? But Rabbi Yosef Save is given the reifen from B'tachin. He had this level of B'tachin as had gesehen in jeder asiyah b'fnei atzmai. He saw and sensed in every single action that he did individually, as das is nit seine asiyah, that it's not his action. It's not a sibbe, it's not something in nature that's bringing it. Not on a sinim Hashem. Every action is also Hashem's gift. It's all Hashem giving it to him. So therefore, he already has the food by him in his house. All he has to do is take the food and now come and prepare it. Filter, as das is nit sein Eichel, was nimmt mishaloi und greit ihm zu. What he feels here about this is that it's not the food that's now mine and it's already closer to me, it's more accessible, and this is already what I have. Nor as tesyav mi malke. It's a gift from Hashem. Does get him, it's the Eibishter. The Eibishter is giving it to him right now. Because whatever means there is in Teva, and now the fact that he has it already over here, doesn't mean that it's actually closer to him, and now it's mine. No, now it's not mine. It's still all a gift of Hashem. And at this very moment, this very action of preparing it is also a gift from Hashem. And therefore, even for this itself, for this action itself, now preparing the food, he has to daven to Hashem for his food. Punkt wie bet for seine Mezainis, wenn hat noch nicht Eichel in Stub. Just like he davens to Hashem for the food when he does not have the food in the house yet. This is the higher level of B'tachin applied even in a case where the person is making a keli through natural means, but yet he recognizes that the natural means itself is also all being created by Hashem and is a gift from Hashem at this very moment. With this we can explain another point about this behavior of Rabbi Yosef Sava. From Stimas Lashon Azaya, looking at the words that the Zayar says simply, where it says that that he did not prepare his meal every single day until he davened to Hashem first, is mashma that this was his behavior, including on Shabbos as well, that he would daven for the food. Is not glatik, so there's something that's not smoothly understood here. Shabbos is achnit azman from bakashas tzrachov, as quoted before. Shabbos is not a day for one to daven and ask Hashem for your needs. Is vi kumtes as Rabbi Yosef ba beusay kamei kutche bricha al mezayne afil b'Shabbos, that he would daven to Hashem to give him his food even on Shabbos as well. But Pianal is das verstandig, based on what we explained before regarding what Rabbi Yosef Sava is doing when he's davening to Hashem for his food. When he already has his food, it's understood. The bakashas tzrachov was darfnet zayin b'yom Shabbos. This that it says that one should not be davening and requesting his needs on Shabbos is dafke when der Adam is as oisen dabei sich That's when the person is coming to his davening with the attitude of that there's me, and there's what I need, and I turn to Hashem to provide for me. Zay Metzias, that's his entity, as im zol nis malaver in tzrachav v'chesroinei. And Hashem should come and fill his needs and what he's lacking. So that's not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we're on a higher level than that. Shabbos person doesn't work, and on Shabbos, we don't come and ask from Hashem for our own personal needs. That's if a person's davening is on a level where there's the I, what I need, and he's davening to Hashem. The davening for one that has a betachan on this level of Rav Yosef Sava is a completely different kind of davening. This is the Bechlal, one of the famous questions about betachan. If one has absolute betachan in Hashem and he's certain that it's going to be toiva, nirva, nigla from Hashem, so what's the davening all about? So over here, the davening of Rav Yosef Sava is on a whole different level. Mashenk and Rav Yosef Sava, so there, by Rav Yosef Sava, his davening is different. Zayin tefillah gekommen dafke defar. What is the basis of his davening? It comes as a result of the fact for zayin metzias hat beim ganzen nit teufels machen gewen. His davening is a result of the fact that who he is has no significance at all. Bis as hat gefühlt auf jeden Trott und Schritt as altes abhängen von Eibischen. On the contrary, what he feels is on every step and every individual action that he's doing, it's all a gift from Hashem. And the desire is dort mevayer, and as desire explains there, as Azan Hage steht regarding this behavior of Rabbi Yosef Sava, it says, "Es hamiyachlim lachazdei," those that are hoping for Hashem's kindness, which means the matzvan or machkan b'chol yoyme, they're hoping and yearning every single day, b'chol yoyme v'yoyme, l'mibayim zaynayim and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to beg for and ask for their sustenance from Hashem. So what does this really mean? That they're waiting to daven and ask Hashem for their panasa. What is their davening expressing? Their davening is expressing a certain doubt and a certain lack that a person feels needy. That's the regular level of davening. But over here, the davening itself is an expression of that they're waiting to daven to express their complete trust in Hashem. As the Rebbe spells out, das heißt, as the teichen atfille is blois zu ausdrücken, dem am yachlam lachastai. The davening itself is the expression of the fact that he has full trust in Hashem, and it's expressing the fact that he recognizes that it all comes from Hashem, and therefore he's turning to Hashem. Was they feeling that is, wie alt is nor chaste Chelek HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That people on this level, Rabbi Yosef Sava, they feel that it's all the kindness of Hashem. It's a different kind of davening. It's this level of davening of Rabbi Yosef Sava, even for the food and the sustenance, can zayin afila b'Shabbos. This is a davening that can be even on Shabbos. That explains why b'chol yom, every single day, even in Shabbos, he would daven for his food. Okay, so this is the explanation of Rabbi Yosef Sava, and therefore, based on this, the Rebbe will come back now to explain how this applies now to what it says in Shulchan Aruch, the two reasons, b'negei to saying the Parsha Saman every day. So now, afapi azoter and hoga from Rabbi Yosef Sava, even though this kind of behavior of Rabbi Yosef Sava is nit adavar hashava l'chol nefesh, it's not something that could be expected from everybody. Afapi kein is efes katzeyu v'shemes menu, something of this, somewhat of this, the point of it, shayach tzayed neinem, is relevant and possible for everybody. Val kolpanim in itim uzumanim, or at least in certain time periods. Generally, this is the difference between weekdays and Shabbos. When a Yid during the 6 days of the week, he's on a condition, and as it's explained in Shulchan Aruch, the person goes to work, and he's doing his work faithfully, honestly, involved in his parnasa. Is by him the betachin and eifin as a zucht as sibbe v'keli. So here is betachin is expressed how within the means of nature. While men ken von him nitmanen, here in this kind of condition can't demand from the person as soll sich demult aufheben in ganzen hecher von teva and halten bei dem hecher und eifin an allem betachin, that the person should be completely removed from nature and he should have that level of betachin, the higher level of betachin where it's coming all directly from Hashem. However, when it comes to Shabbos, which is not a day of action, not a day of work, but a Yid is hecha from malacha, and it's not only the refraining from work, but a Yid elevates himself above that entire lifestyle or involvement in work. from the hechron oifen and bitachen hamiyachlim lachastai. Here, a yid has to lift himself up to somewhat, at least, of the higher level of bitachin when one is completely hoping to Hashem Himself, and even his davening as well is all just about expressing how much he's hoping for the gift of Hashem. Now, based on this, what Pizaya Shleimar, as das ist die Hasbara von dem Chiluk zwischen dem Madure Kame und Madure Tinyana von dem Rebbe Shulchan Aruch b'negei la'amiris Parshas Haman. This explains the difference between the first and second edition in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch for the reason why one should say Parshas Haman every day. The Madure Kame hat Alter Rebbe geschrieben Leute Achra von Gemara und Paiskim. The Madure Kame, the Alter Rebbe wrote based on the Gemara and all the Paiskim, and when there's an argument between the Gemara and Paiskim, and then there's also Mukabalim that had other opinions that may vary from what it says in the Gemara and Paiskim, the Alter Rebbe went with what it says in the Gemara and Paiskim. And since the idea of B'tochen, the way it is on a more simple level, the way it is in the revealed part of Torah, is an anoifen as memuz machana keli, it's on a level where one must and has an obligation to make a vessel in the physical world, is oibmizol brengen als tam lamiris Parshas Haman. So if you're going to bring and say that the reason for saying Parshas Haman every day is liftoyach b'Hashem chulu, that it's about encouraging one to place his trust in Hashem, so then you would have to say that the Parshas Haman could only be said on a weekday when one has that level of bitachon related to his work, the level of bitachon which is accessible for us in relation to work, and also only after davening, when a person has the inyan of bakoshes tzarachav, after there was already the shvach of the davening, and only after davening is it possible then to say the Parshas Haman on this level of bitachon, which Alter Rebbe would be referring to in the first edition of Shulchan Aruch, where he writes halachas based on the way it is in Nigla, the way it is on the simple and more revealed sense of Torah, and therefore on the lower level of bitachon. So the far sagt Alter Rebbe Madure Kame Shaloi, and therefore, in order to explain why Parshas Haman could be said every day and even before davening, so here in the first edition, so the Alter Rebbe has to give a different reason why that is. As the time for Amiris Parshas Haman b'chol yoim is kedei sheyamin shekol mezonais b'on lebashkacha. The only way to explain why Parshas Haman could be said every day and even before davening is because it's not about the level of bitachon. It's about the amunah, the constant amunah that a yid has in Hashem, that everything comes from Hashem, and that's relevant every single day, even on Shabbos. But when it comes to the second edition, so here, when there was an argument between the Gemara and the Paiskim and the Mukabalim, the Alter Rebbe leaned towards the Mukabalim. And therefore, in the second edition, the Alter Rebbe includes also the behavior of a person, the halachas, as this is on a much higher level in serving Hashem. And that relates also here to the union of Betachin. On the far, therefore, zokter dem tam von liftoyach b'Hashem noisen lechem devar yoim b'yoimai. So here the Alter Rebbe does bring the reason that saying the Parshas Haman is to strengthen one's Betachin, one's trust in Hashem, that Hashem gave the bread of the man on a daily basis. Because here the Alter Rebbe is talking about a higher level of Betachin. The higher level of bitachon, where there is no keli, there is no teva, when one hopes for Hashem Himself, and that is his davening, that's everything. There's no means, there's no parnasa, there's no keli, that is. Ken zayin amiras Parshas Haman b'chol yain. So here the Alter Rebbe could bring the reason of bitachon, and this will be explanation for why one can say the Parshas Haman every single day, oich b'Shabbos, including on Shabbos, or on lifnei tefillah, and even before davening.